All right, so today I want to talk about this story out of Saskatchewan, and it came out about a week ago, but I wanted to talk about it nonetheless. And it's from Tracy Wilson. Saskatchewan is passing legislation to block municipalities from banning handguns within their own borders, in a move supported by city mayors who said they never had any intention of doing so. Now, this is a very good move from Saskatchewan. I hope Alberta follows suit. I really hope Alberta follows suit. Um, they did with the whole appointing their own CFO. I mean, something they talked about for like a month anyway. I really hope Alberta does this. And again, this is why I've been pointing out for a long time is that the provinces should have a lot more power when it comes to stuff like this in Canada. This is something that I think is increasingly becoming an issue in Canada that the provinces have very little power, especially when you compare it to the states. Like the states can do pretty much whatever they want when it comes to gun control. I mean, look at California and places like New Jersey that have stricter gun control than Canada does in a lot of ways. Not in some ways. I mean, handguns aren't quite as restricted there's no such thing as restricted guns in California, but when it comes to California, they have the bullet button. They have, and again, the bullet button is very strict. Like you got to literally, like, it makes detachable magazines almost meaningless. They have you not a lot of pistol grips, like all this kind of stuff. I mean, in New Jersey, I believe it's illegal to even hold a gun that you don't own. So there's a bunch of crazy laws in some of these states, but there's also states that have constitutional carry, which means you can open or conceal carry. I mean, some I believe it's just open, but nonetheless, you can carry a gun without a permit as long as you're legally allowed to own the gun in the first place, which is exactly how it should be, right? Like if you can legally own the gun in the first place, why do you need a piece of paper from the government that says you can carry it? Like why did that? I don't think that really makes any sense. Um, the problem is when you talk to the average Canadian about that, they're all shocked and appalled, like, "Oh, that's crazy." Even though those states have a lower murder rate than the U.S. average, I've pointed that out several times. But this is going back to Canada. This is a very good thing for Saskatchewan, not for Canada, because most of the rest of Canada is rabidly anti-gun, aside from Alberta and Saskatchewan. But it's a very good move. I hope Alberta follows suit. And this is just another reason why people who don't already support the idea of a Western separation, or at the very least, any move that could give us more sovereignty, why anyone who doesn't support that, I have no words for you. If as long as you're from Alberta and Saskatchewan too, and this is another thing that I've pointed out about people on the left, is that if you actually believe in your political views and you're on the left, then you should support a Wexit movement, because what a Wexit movement would mean is Alberta and Saskatchewan most likely would leave Canada, which means elections in Canada would largely come down to the socialists versus the liberals. There would be, I mean, whether it's the NDP or whether it's the liberals, one of them would move hard left, which they both already are pretty hard left. Again, the left likes to pretend that they're both center left, they're just to the left of center, when in reality they're not. The conservatives are centrists. The conservatives are centrists. Um, and all the data shows that. The liberals are pretty much, they're probably slightly closer to the left than they are to the center, and the NDP are, if they're not socialists, they're about as close as you can possibly be without being socialists. Um, but that's the thing. Elections in Canada would come down to the Socialist Party versus the moderate left party. Not center left, I mean more moderate left, at least compared to socialists, not compared to actual centrists. So if you actually believe in your political beings, I see all these people on social media in Alberta whenever you read Kenny's Twitter comments, or when you're on Reddit, because Reddit is largely a left wing echo chamber. Um, all these people complaining, like, you should support a Wexit movement. Then great, go to BC, go to Ontario. You have your leftist paradise. You have your leftist paradise, but you don't want that, because the problem is that leftists know in the back of their head, I think most of them is unconsciously, that the only way that these socialist and leftist policies can work is if there's a base of people that, for lack of a better way of putting it, are exploited. And Alberta, perfect example of that, is a province that is exploited. We put far more into the system than we get out. And this is again the only way that socialism can work. Socialism only can work when you have a small percentage of people that are putting in 10 times, 100 times more into the system than they're getting out, because under socialism, people increasingly become net negatives when it comes to government services compared to the amount of taxes they're paying compared to net positives. So the problem with that is you need a group of people that are disproportionately net positives, and by net positives, massively net positive, not just a little bit. You need people again that are putting in 100 times as amount into the system than they're getting out. The problem with that is Alberta has some of the highest incomes, maybe the highest incomes. I don't know if they because our economy slowed down, if we still do, in the country. Um, and if we leave, well, where's the government going to get all that revenue from? Like these people know that even though they tacitly support, you can't keep running massive deficits over and over and over again for generations. Eventually, it's going to blow up in your face. And how they're kind of getting away with it now is that we're taking $20 billion from Alberta every year and not giving them anything. Alberta, the province of Alberta produces about 50 billion in revenue. We're only getting 30 of it to use for ourselves. So the East is taking the rest of it. So that's one of the main reasons why these people don't support it. Number two is when you're on the left, and I don't even think that they would deny this, is that you have the idea that like it's the classic Trump example too, that if you're a Democrat in the States or even a liberal in Canada, if Trump believes in something, then you automatically just blindly take the opposite position. Like it's the Babylon Bee article I seen the other day is the best way of putting it, is that they're a satirical news outlet, and they put out a story saying Trump comes out in favor of impeachment, thus forcing the Democrats to oppose. And that's where we're at too. That no matter what Trump does, they'll take the opposite position. Now that's an example of maybe them finally agreeing, but the point being is that no matter what they do, they'll take the opposite position. So again, the right supports Wexit, they just blindly take the opposite position, even though if they actually believed in what they believe in, they would support a Wexit. Like everybody should support Wexit. Like it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. The only way, I mean, maybe the only way that you should be against Wexit is if you have roots here. The problem is that a lot of people don't have that strong of roots, especially if you've only been here a generation or two. Um, and again, too, like even if you have roots, if you have somewhere that perfectly aligns with your political views, would you not want to move there? Like if Saskatchewan, let's say Saskatchewan had a Wexit movement and that they actually did it the right way, like they didn't just flat out leave, they actually implemented some decent laws that prevented them from becoming, a leftist hellhole down the road. I would most likely move there. I would do whatever it took to move there. Even though I do have roots in Alberta, but the problem is that the left is very different. They don't actually believe in their political views. They're very lazy too. They're very lazy kind of people, at least on average. They're the kind of people that think that, oh, I vote every 3, 4, 5 years, therefore I've done my duty to society. When in reality that's like not even close. You did like 1% of your duty. Um, but anyway, that's kind of my Wexit leftist rant that I've brought up before, and I've heard people have some good comments about it. But it's a very good analogy that if the left actually does believe in their political beliefs, then why in the world do you not support a Wexit movement? Because if Wexit happened, Canada again, elections in Canada, the Conservatives would be lucky to get third place. They I don't even think they would ever get second place again, because like just look at I'd like to see an election map. Like how many seats would the Conservatives have won if you take Alberta and Saskatchewan out? It's got to be hardly any. It's got to be no more than 10 to 15% of the leftover seats, because they did do half decent in Ontario. Obviously not enough to win. I think they got a handful of seats in Manitoba and then the northern provinces, but I don't even think they got even a majority in any of the other provinces. Maybe one of the northern ones, but the northern ones are largely meaningless because there's so few people. Um, but that's the thing, is that if Alberta and Saskatchewan left, Canada could become a socialist country, and by that I mean literal socialist. We're already on the way to that happening, like it or not. We're on the way to that happening, which is why I support Wexit. But anyway, getting back to the whole gun thing to kind of sum it up, it is a very good move in that The provinces should have more power, and that let Toronto, let Montreal, let Vancouver ban handguns. If they want to do it, go ahead. The good thing about that too is that would just drive out all the gun owners out into different areas. Like hopefully, if you're a gun owner in Toronto, or a gun owner in Montreal or Vancouver, and that's important to you. I mean, there probably isn't that many people. Move to Edmonton, move to Calgary, move to Regina or somewhere like that, and thus helping out these provinces. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to bring up as far as that goes. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, appreciate any donations with the very least. Just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things as always, check me out on Twitter and check me out on BitChute. All the links are in the description, so you can find them all there.